It's been said that the foolish man built his house upon the sand, and the wise man built his house upon the rock. Well, the wise fantasy football player builds their house upon the ultimate draft kit from the Fantasy Footballers. Full projections, video profiles, tier breakdowns, risk ratings, while you watch other teams comically topple over like a clown with poor balance. Your foundation for an incredible season will be solidified. You are the mighty redwood. Your opponents are one-ply toilet paper. You are iron alloyed with carbon. Your opponents are a soggy leaf of lettuce. Go to www.ultimatedraftkit.com and get out of the sand today.
Hey, this is Allen Robinson from the Jacksonville Jaguars, and you're listening to the Fantasy Footballers Podcast.
Welcome to the Fantasy Footballers Podcast, coming to you from the Play Draft Studios with your hosts, Andy Holloway, Jason Moore, and Mike Wright.
Welcome to Thursday. Welcome in, one and all. Got a great show for you today. It is August 17th, and we are fastly approaching the start of the regular season. Some important preseason games.
So fastly.
Fastly approaching.
Quickly?
Sure, quickly.
Yesterday, I guess it is fast. That's not a word.
I don't think that's a word.
Wow. Yeah, it took me like saying it 5 times.
We know what you meant, so that's really what matters when you're communicating, is that the message gets across.
Yeah, well, welcome in. That's all you need to know about us. We're the Fantasy Footballers. Back again, top 12 tight end episode. Great quick question. Excited to get into it. One final reminder for you. We are doing a live show in Phoenix, Arizona at the Crescent Ballroom. You can get tickets at ballerslive.com if you want to come hang out with us. It's going to be a lot of fun. We're going to give away an autographed David Johnson framed jersey from Pristine Auction.
It's framed. It's ready to go.
It is nice. Very nice.
And guess what? If you got a ticket, you're at the show,
you're in.
You're in, man. You're eligible.
We'll probably figure out some other cool stuff to do as well. Of course. Have some exciting things that Mike is working out. And then next week, a heads up, the My Guys episode is coming.
Oh, yeah. That's all I got. But the My Guys, I mean, that is a yearly treat where we plant our flags on those, a player at each position. Or normally we go three My Guys. Yeah. I don't have mine complete. I think I know who.
I've got some candidates.
But I'm working on it.
Yeah. I'm working through the primaries here. We're going to get some candidates for those My Guys.
I'll be staring in the fire over the weekend.
Are you going to do it fastly?
Yes.
You going to figure it out? All right, FootClanGiveaway.com, a signed David Johnson helmet over there that you can get in on, free to enter. We're giving that away.
It feels like we have David Johnson locked in a room, just signing things for us to give away.
Just wait. I'm still working on it. All right, guys, quick question of the day for the podcast. Who is the most talented player in the worst situation? The most talented player in the worst situation. Another way to think about that might be take them out of this bad situation, drop them somewhere else, and they'd be fantasy gold. But right now they're a talented player in a tough situation.
I'll hop in here because I believe that Derrick Henry is one of the 10 most talented running backs in football. I think when he gets the chance, he will be an absolute elite option. And he's not in the worst of all possible positions, right? I mean, good offensive line, good offense, but he's going to get 150 touches at the most, barring injury to DeMarco Murray. He is not in an equal timeshare with DeMarco Murray. He is a clear backup because DeMarco Murray is there. And if I think he's every bit as talented, maybe not as a pass catcher, but as a pure runner, even more talented than DeMarco Murray. So he's the one guy I would love to see a situation change for, based strictly on talent.
Did you get a chance to watch him in the preseason week 1?
Yeah, well, yes, of course.
I'm just asking because some people had said he looked slow.
Well, yeah, I mean, he did not electrify this preseason, but I believe we have enough film from last year and enough reports from camp and college that say he is elite. He just didn't have the best week 1 preseason few drives.
Allen Robinson is my pick. Allen Robinson is attached to Blake Bortles right now. That is a bad situation. Last year, Bortles threw the ball 626 times, 4th most in the league, and Allen Robinson still disappointed fantasy owners with the production. You want talent and opportunity, and yet that opportunity is being hamstrung by Blake Bortles. If the attempts come down, you have to hope for efficiency from Blake Bortles and the offense, and while he was better under Doug Marrone, I still think it is a bad situation for who I think is a very, very talented wide receiver who has flashed upper echelon talent at times. So I'll go with Allen Robinson as the most talented in the worst situation.
The nice thing about Allen Robinson, he's in a contract year, which we always like for fantasy football, a guy who's going to go that extra mile. Maybe they're a bit dinged up, but they know they got to play for that cash money, so they're going to stay out there. And on top of that, then he can go somewhere else when this season is over if things don't work out for Jacksonville, if Blake Bortles can't return to form. I'm going to cheat a little bit on this because I'm just going to say the Rams.
I was thinking Sammy Watkins in my short list.
I'm doing a combo package here of Todd Gurley and Sammy Watkins, who are wasting away on the Los Angeles Rams currently because I don't see Jared Goff ever evolving into a franchise quarterback. He certainly can improve over last year, but that's not saying a whole lot that he can improve over last year. And Sammy Watkins is an elite talent. I hope he does not re-sign in Los Angeles. Hope he goes somewhere where they can fully utilize his skills. And Todd Gurley is, for all the grief I put onto Todd Gurley, I still believe in him as an NFL player. I think that he is a great running back, but he's just in he's on a bad team. He's got a bad offensive line. He's got a bad quarterback. And there's only so many things a running back can do.
I don't think you're right on that whole take there. I mean, he does not have I think they've improved their offensive line a ton this offseason.
Okay, so
and I think people hear us pooping all over the Rams, but there is a lot of change that has happened on this roster.
Sure.
Not just Sean McVay, but with the offensive line. I still understand
it's still
the
Jared
situation,
Goff.
And it's all hopeful.
It's
from what we've
hopes
seen
and
so
dreams
far,
and kisses and creams.
There. The offensive line did not, I mean, again, only one game in the preseason, but the offensive line did not look especially great in their preseason action in the first quarter.
We know that an offensive line, as much as we want to just say drag and drop a new piece into here and everything is fixed, they're a group. It's not just individual guys. They have to be able to play with each other.
Can we just have Sammy Watkins next year when he's finished his contract year go sign to replace the 33-year-old then Jordy Nelson? Can I dream a little bit?
Oh, my goodness.
Dream a little dream.
Wow.
I dreamed a dream.
Sammy Watkins in Green Bay?
Of Sammy in Green Bay.
Yeah, that would be.
My dynasty team would be pleased.
I've got all those fantasy points just rolling through my brain right now. That'll be a great one game a year, Sammy with Aaron Rodgers. Follow us on Twitter at the FF Ballers. We're also on YouTube, the YouTube channel. Mike is waving to you over there.
Double wave.
YouTube.com/The Fantasy Footballers. And we're on the Fantasy Sports Network as well. You can find us over at jointhefoot.com if you want to get into the community. Join 3,000-plus Foot Clan members over there and hang out with us. Join a Foot Clan League. Let's talk some news.
News and notes from around the league.
All right, not a ton of news to go through, but some things to keep you informed about. Ty Montgomery working through a lower leg injury that sidelined him the last 2 days at practice. He's going to miss the second preseason game. Smells like opportunity for Jamaal Williams to show what he's got.
Yeah, I mean, that's exactly what it is. It's great news for a rookie to be able to showcase with the ones and get the start. And really, even I would say for the Green Bay Packers, obviously it's not good news to have your starting running back working through a lower leg issue, but it is kind of nice to force their hand to see what they have a little bit more in Jamaal Williams working with the ones should that need arise later in the season. And I'm worried that this might bump Jamaal Williams up a lot if he shows well.
Yeah, an opportunity. That's one of the things I'm definitely looking forward to seeing in week 2. Emmanuel Sanders and Eric Decker suffered minor injuries. Shoulder injury for Emmanuel Sanders, left practice early, and then Decker twisted ankle. At least Mike Mularkey is saying it is not serious. When I read this report earlier, I read it as Mularkey is not serious, like it was a joke. Like, I got you. He didn't really twist his ankle. John Brown news. We need to talk about this. We brought it up yesterday. Jaron Brown is the quote-unquote for now number 2 receiver in Arizona. Bruce Arians, he does not mince words.
He's not nice.
He got bodied.
And he basically said, look, Brown's sickle cell trait's still an issue. They both acknowledged it, Brown and Arians, and then said, look, if he can't get through it, he's going to be replaced. I mean, it was like you can tell there's frustration there from Bruce Arians with the wide receiver core in general. We've been so excited about John Brown because all the early reports early this offseason were they figured it out, they've worked through it. But this is something that seems to rear its head repeatedly, and it equates to not being able to recover from soft tissue issues in any frame of time that, works for this offense and for this team. It's a downgrade for Carson Palmer if John Brown's not there because he's more talented than Jaron Brown. He's been more consistent, and he has a rapport and a chemistry with Carson Palmer that you cannot replicate overnight.
No, I agree. I mean, when you look at Carson Palmer's success, it lines up with the success of John Brown. Last year, Carson Palmer threw a ton of passes, somewhere around 640 passes last year, and you don't view him as a uber successful fantasy quarterback. So if John Brown is not able to get over this, and I think it's fair to already say he's not going to be able to get over this. They knew this starting, middle of last year. They had through the season, they had the entire offseason. I don't know that they're going to all of a sudden magic some new solution, which says to me John Brown has to go down in every ranking. I don't know how much you can trust him, and you'll have to recalibrate the Cardinals' offense. It's just not good news for the Cardinals.
597 attempts for Palmer.
597, okay, yeah. Almost 600.
Yeah.
That
640 sounded a little high, so I wanted to correct that.
The risk rating of John Brown is a 10.
That's probably too low.
Right, out of 10 out of 10, and that's probably too low.
You know what it was? Carson Palmer didn't play one of the games, right? He only played 15, I believe. I was shocked to see that the Arizona Cardinals as a team had more passing attempts than the Jaguars. I was looking that up this morning. I believe the Cardinals were
he had the concussion and then the short week against San Francisco. He didn't make it through.
Right.
Oh, man. So, some more happy news.
3rd-round pick Kenny Golladay.
Oh, so smooth.
Kenny G worked primarily with the first-team offense for the first time
now
in training camp.
We need to be a little careful here with Kenny Golladay because he's coming up a lot on the show. I don't want people to overreact.
No, I saw you on Twitter, Mike. You were tempering those expectations. You still said late round.
Yes. He's still a late round. He's still a flyer, but, I mean, just following that stock, it's going up.
Here's what you need to understand about that situation. It's not a locked and loaded 2 outside receiver situation in Detroit where there's not room for Golladay. Like, Golden Tate's a slot receiver. Right. I mean, he just comes inside, and you line up 3 wide, and you've got Marvin Jones, Kenny Golladay, and Golden Tate with Riddick and Abdullah. And this is why we talk so much about Matthew Stafford and liking the opportunity there, especially if Golladay can be a red zone contributor. Eric Ebron, he's banged up again, but if he can make a contribution. So it is something to pay attention to, another player to watch in the preseason, and a player that I would certainly, if I was drafting today, be taking a late-round shot on because you could see his stock and actual playing time escalate quickly, and if you can steal him right now, that'd be great.
And I wanted to bring up Mike Gillislee, who has been not practicing with a hamstring injury for quite some time now, and
it's not good.
I saw a report earlier that he was not traveling with the team for a practice, but I can't find that report anymore. Do you guys have any information on that? Was that report pulled down?
I did not see that report,
Sleeper
but I will say this. The length of time that
It's
he
worrisome.
has been missing. It was expected to be a couple days. Now we're going into multiple weeks. That's worrisome, not just from a standpoint of, okay, it's a serious injury, which, a more serious injury than just, a little tweak, which says, okay, it can be re-aggravated in the season, but also he's new on this team and missing important, training camp time.
Yeah.
While the other backs there, Dion Lewis, Rex Burkhead, they are not missing time. They're getting plugged in.
This is turning into a puzzle, and the puzzle pieces are flipped over. Like, you can't even find the colors
it's a 1,000-piece
that
puzzle
match.
backwards.
Gillislee's not the only hand-picked running back there. I mean, Dion Lewis was hand-picked by Belichick. James White is a favorite, and Rex Burkhead was hand-picked by Belichick. So all of a sudden you're in a situation where I think all the stock was rising on Gillis Lee. Now I'm certainly more apprehensive.
Yes.
And I think that makes it a very risky, high upside, but high downside.
Low.
This is the
tracking with you.
hi. I'm Jason Moore. I'm taking over today between Fastly and high downside.
High downside.
Goodness.
You don't want players with a high downside.
And Andy, I'm going to ask you about this. Colts center Ryan Kelce.
Oh, not good.
He's going to miss 6 to 8 weeks. He's
Not
been
good.
placed on the IR, designated to return with foot surgery.
That's what you want coming back. Injured Andrew Luck. No center.
so.
Yeah, and
I mean, that's
If you look at
trouble.
Yeah, I mean, really, it's not good news for the entire offense. Obviously, bad news for Andrew Luck coming back when he was already sacked as much as he was, but bad news for Frank Gore as well.
Yeah.
Granted, it's only going to be the beginning of the season, but I believe I saw the RB Scout tweeting out the success that Frank Gore had came most of the time when it was going to holes that were affected by Kelly. So that's going.
No,
to
and we've seen Pouncey and the impact he's had.
We are big proponents of. You need to know about centers in football. They are a huge, huge asset to not just the running game, but the good centers are calling out protections, pointing out who the blitzer is going to be. I mean, they're a really important part of the offense.
Good friend of the show, Nick Mangold.
Yeah,
was once one of the
and
best. at that.
Alex Mack goes to
NFL
Atlanta,
center.
and all of a sudden, the Falcons are one of the best running teams in the league.
No, Alex Mack is a great case study there. All right, we're going to talk tight ends, top 12 tight ends on the show today. We're also going to share some sleeper tight ends that I'm excited to talk about. And before we do that, look, not every show, we get iTunes reviews, and they say things like, love the show, love the sponsors. And we take pride in that as a podcast. Right now, we're going to take a second to thank sponsor of the show, Pristine Auction. Now, we finally announced our Listener League picks. We went through over 500 entries, and only, 11 of you were able to get into the Listener League. So there are so many people that are, if you didn't make it, it wasn't because you weren't deserving. There were a lot of deserving people.
Absolutely. I was going to say, if you feel like you deserved to get in,
you're probably right.
You're probably right.
And we were so thankful for those entries. I will tell you this, there were several people who got in this year with an entry that also had entered last year with a great entry, and we didn't let them in because of that, but they were persistent. They sent in another great, unique entry. We got them in, but a couple of them poked fun at our love of Pristine Auction, and for good reason. We love Pristine Auction and their autographed memorabilia. We love the fact that they keep advancing in this area where now you can get autographed jerseys and instantly have them framed, and you don't have to go down to your local store and pay a bunch of money to have them framed. You can order the jersey, and then just, boom, it shows up framed as well. There are hundreds of daily auctions every single day, and you can go grab your favorite player for the upcoming draft, for your football room, whatever you're doing. Pristine Auction has the gear you need. So check them out at pristineauction.com. That's Pristine auction.com.
And we want to thank Barkbox. And for those of you out there, pet owners, and you're saying, what's this Barkbox all about? Get your life in order. This is what Barkbox is. It's a delivery of 4 to 6 natural treats and fun toys curated around a surprise theme each month. And I got a shocker for you. Dogs love it. People love getting stuff in the mail. You know who else likes it? The dog, right? And you got to keep the dog happy. You head over to the website. You tell them how big your dog is by weight. Then you choose a plan, 1, 6, or 12 months. You can cancel anytime. It's free shipping. And then the box is shipped out on the 15th. It is that Easy. All the edibles are made in the U.S. or Canada. It's a great way to try a variety of treats and toys from local and small businesses that you may not be able to find. If your dog isn't happy with something in the box, that's pretty rare, but Barkbox will find something they love for free. They're all about dogs being happy. I have my mom hooked on Barkbox. Her 2 little dachshunds. They're living the life. They're living the dream out there, and they are spoiled each and every month with Barkbox. This is what we need you to do, Foot Clan. You head over to barkbox.com/footballers. You can get a free extra month when you sign up for the 6 or 12-month plan. That's barkbox.com/footballers.
Tight ends.
Let's talk tight ends.
I like that drop.
Yeah,
That's a
pretty
good one.
Gets you.
Got the tom work on the drums.
Who made that drop, Mike?
Yeah, good
Someone
job,
who's
Mike.
really, really good.
All right, tight end rankings, top 12, number 1, consensus number 1. We all got him there, and he deserves it. Rob Gronkowski finished the number 1 tight end in 2011, number 4 in 2012, number 1 in 2014, and number 1 in 2015. And in spite of the injury history, in 8 games last year, he had 540 yards. So, very good season for Rob Gronkowski. Insane production. His career average, is this right, is 14.5 yards per reception. And last year in basically 6 games, because he was a...
Yeah, do recall that when he came back, his
he was
first
basically
game didn't get a target, and then once Brady came back, it was domination.
21.6 yards per reception. That's Deshaun Jackson.
That's
In
better
his-
than
that's
Deshaun
better
Jackson.
than Deshaun Jackson. 106 yard per game average. There's not a lot you need to say about Gronkowski other than the fact that you are playing with fire to a degree. And I looked at I think I went to ESPN this morning, and they had their do not draft list, and the headliner was Rob Gronkowski. So how do you feel about that, Mike?
That is really funny because this is the first year I have ever recommended drafting Rob Gronkowski because the price is more palatable.
Yeah, you can find him in the 3rd round often.
When he's a first-round pick, no, you do not spend your first-round pick on a tight end, on a replaceable position. There's only one of them that you have to play. There's only 12 active, essentially, each and every week. But if you can get Gronk at the back of the 2nd because you're close to the turn or early in the 3rd, I'm all about that life because he is such a difference maker. And you already have 2 studs on your team that you're not blowing an opportunity cost by reaching for Rob Gronkowski. So I'm all in on it. I know, and it's absolutely playing with fire, but I play to win and I play aggressively. So this year, I'm in on Rob.
He is the one and only tight end that I am willing to draft early, in those, inside the first 5 rounds. I'm not going to take anyone else that's going inside the first 5 rounds because they aren't as big a difference maker as they need to be at a position that you only start 1 at. Gronk right now is statted out in my personal rankings. People ask, well, where would he be if he was a wide receiver? He would be just behind Mike Evans and ahead of T.Y. Hilton at number 8 in my rankings if he were a wide receiver.
That's
and he gets
insane.
to play in a slot where no one else comes really close to that. You look at his consistency when he does start, he is almost 20% higher than 2nd place when it comes to finishes as a top 12 tight end. That consistency is huge. Obviously, there's the injury risk, but there are, he's got several seasons finishing with 15 or more games, and he has, in the past, won many fantasy teams have won a championship on the back of Rob Gronkowski. So it's like Mike said, if you want to play to win and you're willing to take that risk and play with fire, late 2nd, early 3rd, I say it's worth it.
Well, and this is not a this is a theme that runs throughout the tight end position with injury risk. There are players like number 2 here, Jordan Reed, Tyler Eifert, that have had a history of injury. So we're going to talk about that a lot. Number 2, he's on the wall today. Jordan Reed, Rule 86.
Oh, he's on the wall.
Now, the injury to the foot of Jordan Reed has caused...
He's got those orthodontists now.
Right, he's got braces on his feet now, and he's working through it. No, he's got look, he got some special orthotics for his cleats.
And he's loving it, by the way.
And he says he's loving it, but come on. I mean,
no one's loving that.
Everybody's fine, right, until they're not. So his ADP, though, his average draft position has dropped into the late 5th round. Mike, Jason just said he wasn't messing around with any other tight ends in the first 5 rounds, but this seems like a price that if you do believe he'll be on the field, we know the impact he can make. He's never played 16 games, but he's very dominant as a force. Gruden said that, look, everything runs through Jordan Reed. How do you feel about him in the back of the 5th right now, knowing the injury situation?
I actually disagree with Jason that Gronk's the only difference maker at the tight end. I think Jordan Reed is absolutely right up there with him. What Gronk was doing last year, then he'd be an unstoppable fantasy force. I don't think he's going to, over the course of a year, do what he was doing last year of 100 yards per game. But Jordan Reed is right up there with Rob Gronkowski, especially if you are in a half or a full point PPR, because they're different players. Gronk's getting you that ridiculous 21 yards per catch. That's not what Reed gives you. He gives you actually very little of those 20-plus yard plays, but he is a huge threat in the red zone. He's a huge threat to score.
He's the first Reed in the offense.
Yeah. Oh,
pun intended.
I see what you did. And if you had Reed early on last year, you were disappointed, and that was because for whatever reason, Washington was not targeting him in the end zone. They corrected that, but he is on par with Rob Gronkowski when it comes to injury risk. But
see, that's where
Joey, you don't think that they're the same?
No, I don't think they're the same. I think Jordan Reed is a significantly higher injury risk than Rob Gronkowski.
Okay.
Like you said, Reed has never finished with a season worth of games. Gronk's had 2 years where he's played 16, 2 years where he's played 15. I completely agree with you when you say that there are 2 difference-making tight ends. Jordan Reed is up there with Gronk. My whole reason where I put Gronk by himself is injury risk, and that might sound hypocritical because Gronk has his own, but I don't think it's as significant as Reed, who is injured right now.
The difference between their injuries is Gronk has been more injury prone to major injury, and Reed has been more prone to concussions, more prone to smaller injuries that keep him out, and he
shoulder
plays through a shoulder strain or pain. And
that was not just pain. I mean, his scapula was removed from his body.
Well, that's not good.
No,
it's not good.
And the truth is, Jordan Reed is likely, if you want to talk dynasty leagues for a second, Jordan Reed is probably one big concussion from done. I can't imagine that he will be back in the NFL if he sustains another concussion and he seems to be more likely to get them.
6 documented cases dating back to college.
That's 6 in the last 6 years.
Oh my,
that is not good. So that's where I say I just think Jordan Reed, every bit as talented for fantasy football purposes, but his injury risk is.
But he's 3 rounds later.
The way that I view it, I don't think Jordan Reed plays the majority of the season, as in more than half of the games. I have a note to move him down.
Well, if there's anything that's coming through these tight end discussions so far, it's that if you can make the decision to play to win with the tight end position and hope that the guy you take, if you take one of these top end guys, is healthy. And the odds of that being the case are maybe a coin flip. So let's talk about somebody who has been healthy the majority of the time. Travis Kelce.
Not when he came into the league.
No, not when he came into the league, but the last 3 years he's finished in the top 10. He slowly put together this consistency that you hope for from a tight end. Not a touchdown producer, but last year in 16 games, Kelce, 85 for 11, 25, and 4. I have him at 4. Mike and Jason both have him at that 3 spot. And I heard another fantasy expert talk about 1,300 yards as a possibility for Travis Kelce. Do you buy into that as a possibility in this offense without Jeremy Maclin, because he's pretty much, him and Tyreek Hill are going to soak up passing targets, but what does that mean? What is his real ceiling, and is he maybe the best balance of security in terms of health with draft position going in the 4th round, or would you not touch him there?
I would not grab him in the 4th round, but to speak to your point, possible? It's possible because the team, when Maclin got injured last year, for a stretch of games, they finally turned the offense over to Zeus and unleashed him, and that's when he started that reign of dominance where he finished with over 100 yards for 4 straight games. He, for the first half of the year, was fine. It's really when that offense shift happened. So the question is, do you buy into the Chiefs saying, okay, we've proven this in concept? Maybe that's a part of why they were okay letting Macklin go. Not so much that Tyreek Hill's ready to be the one. They think maybe Travis Kelce is ready to be their one. But the problem with Kelce is he doesn't score touchdowns. He had 4 last year. His number 1 season, which we always talk about, end-of-season rankings can be misleading. But last year he was the number 1 tight end. But 2015 he would have been 6th with the points he had. 2014, 4th. 2013, 4th. So it wasn't necessarily
the rank kind of skews.
The entire water level came down for tight ends last year, and Travis Kelce just happened to be the healthiest boat.
Right.
He happened to just stay at the top.
Right.
So it's not that I dislike him at all. I love Kelce. I think he's a lock for 1,000 yards. But if you're going to get that 4 to 6 touchdowns yet again from Kelce, you're going to be disappointed with that 4th-round pick.
Let me ask you this, Jason. Do you believe that the water level rises again this year, or do we see another year like last year from the tight end position?
I think from tight ends as a whole, you're going to see it mostly the same. There are a couple guys that might raise the the feeling of the position.
Raise the sewage.
It
wasn't really water last year.
I think Rob Gronkowski will come back to form, and I think Jimmy Graham has a chance to also take a step forward. If those two guys perform at their ability for 15 or 16 games, then at the end of the year we'll feel like the tight ends rose. But I believe the majority, tight end 3 through 30, they're going to be what they were last year, which is not important.
All right, number 4 on our consensus rankings is my number 3 guy. Both of you guys have him at 5, and I think my number 3 ranking is reflective of my feelings on this offense as a whole. It's Greg Olsen. Look, if there was a player at the tight end position that we accidentally skipped like Danny Woodhead from the running back show, it might have been Greg Olsen, because the respect paid Greg Olsen, it's almost like he's boring with his levels of consistency. 6, 7, 4, 5, 3. That's his fantasy finishes since 2012. And if you want a player that will play all the time.
Yeah, I was going to say, here, let me read you the games played last few years. I'm not going to look. 16, 16, 16, 16, 16, 16, 16, and I just keep going and forever.
So Jordan Reed and Greg Olsen are both in the 5th round. Polar opposites of risk, in my opinion. And one guy has never played 16. One guy only plays 16. I like the Carolina offense. I like the schedule. I like the opportunity for Cam to bounce back and the weapons. And I like Greg Olsen, and that's why he's here. I think you put Greg Olsen into your lineup, and you're going to be winning that tight end matchup against your opponent, 9 out of 10 times.
He's very similar to Travis Kelce in that he is an integral part to the offense. He will play the whole season, but he's not a touchdown high, super high win you a week because he had that monster game type of player. But Greg Olsen will go later in the drafts because he is older, because he wasn't the number 1 tight end last year. So if I only could pick between Travis Kelce and Greg Olsen, I'd be taking Greg Olsen in my drafts.
Now,
Travis Kelce and Greg Olsen, both top 12 tight ends, the same percentage of the time last year.
Am I remembering this correctly, that Greg Olsen is the first tight end ever to have 1,000 yards 3 consecutive seasons?
True, ever.
Yeah, that's
Ditka.
That's why he's my number 3 tight end.
And I get it. He's consistent, but he's like Travis Kelce,
right,
where it's just the touchdowns that just don't seem to be there for him.
You know who the touchdowns do seem to be there for is our number 5 tight end, which is Tyler Eifert.
Oh, so handsome.
Once again.
We're bringing that back. Harken back to 2 years ago when you just complimented the appearance of Tyler Eifert.
Handsome man. Next on the tight end list is Jimmy Graham. Handsome Tyler Eifert is very similar to, the high upside, high injury risk tight end mold that some of these guys are made in. His per game basis is fantastic. He was better than the number 1 tight end overall last year, Kelce, on a per game basis. But the problem has always been with Eifert, his injury risk. Yeah. So over under on games missed for Eifert, if it's 13, what are you taking?
Yeah, I'll take the under, probably.
Yeah, I probably would too.
But he's just, when he's on the field, he's dominant. And unlike last year, he's healthy coming into the season. He didn't get hurt playing in the freaking Pro Bowl. And last year, from weeks 8 through 14, he was the tight end 1 in points per game because he is an unbelievable threat to score.
Great on third down, great in the red zone.
Yes, and while the yardage may not be there, we at least have evidence. We've seen flashes that Tyler Eifert can take over a game and be a 100-yard per game type of guy. Will the offense ever truly funnel through him? Unlikely. But for a position that is so skewed towards touchdowns, Tyler Eifert in the back of the 6th round, early 7th round, who is a threat for double-digit touchdowns, that's something that is very interesting to me. In my play draft best ball leagues, I have him in probably 80% of those leagues.
He's one of those rare players to me that actually makes a difference in your scoring format. You know, most of the time the scoring changes get overinflated and people are so worried about, well, what about how do they rank in this? And the reality is rankings shift very little. But with the average draft position of Tyler Eifert, he's in the 6th round, whether he's in standard or whether he's in PPR. To me, he is a value if you're in a standard league where touchdowns reign supreme for the tight end, but not a value at the same spot in a PPR league. So I shift my thoughts on him completely depending on which scoring format I'm in.
We have an office league through the SleeperBot app that we just started up. We just finished that draft. It's only a 6-team league, like with the people that are here in the studio with us.
So everyone's team pretty good.
But I'm making this point because everybody's team's loaded, and we all get a chance to draft a couple good tight ends, generally. Mike sniped Tyler Eifert.
Yep.
But he only did it because the round before I took Jimmy Graham. And I took Jimmy Graham ahead of Eifert in that situation because I did not want to pair Rob Gronkowski with Tyler Eifert. Jimmy Graham is number 6 in our consensus top 12 tight end rankings. And I'm with Jason. We cannot forget the history of Jimmy Graham. Last year he was the 4th best tight end. He obviously had the injury the year before. He had just moved to Seattle. But the years prior, 3, 1, 1, 2, going back to 2011.
Was he the tight end 4 or tight end 9?
I had him at 4.
Okay.
I had him at 4.
Oh, you're saying you are projecting 4. I was thinking
last year.
Yeah, I think last year he was the tight end 4.
Yeah, he had a great year last year.
Verifying.
65 for 923 and 6 on 95 targets, coming back from the injury. In his first 8 games, he was tight end 4. It looks like in the second half he was tight end 12. Okay, so that might have been what we had.
But on the season, he did finish as the tight end 4.
Okay.
Just verified.
There you go.
Travis Kelce, Greg Olsen, Kyle Rudolph, then Jimmy Graham.
Okay.
Talk about offenses funneling through a piece like Travis Kelce. It could very easily funnel through Jimmy Graham this year. It's the Jimmy Graham, Doug Baldwin. We know what Russell Wilson can do, and now he's a year healthier, and he's the back of the 5th round. What do you need to say about Jimmy Graham other than upside potential is there for a top 3 finish?
I see my note. I had him at he was actually the tight end 9 on points per game. He did finish in a time stretch. So
yeah, that's
confusing
because
myself
of all your Jordan
with my
Reeds
bad
and
notations.
your Travis, your Tyler
Mike,
Eiferts and Gronks.
Let's
that
be clear.
play
You
half
weren't
the
just
year.
confusing yourself. You confused all of us as well.
Yeah, you're welcome. Come along with me.
With Jimmy Graham, when he went to Seattle, I was very worried about the way they utilized the tight end and whether or not any volume would be there for him compared to where he was coming from. People were like, oh, he's going to Russell Wilson, so he'll be a good pick. Then there was the injury, which was a horrific, very difficult to come back from injury.
Most people do not.
All of those things stacked up very opposed to a successful Jimmy Graham season. And Jimmy Graham –
I believed.
Yeah. Andy did. Andy liked Jimmy Graham more than myself or Mike last year. Jimmy Graham showed that it is, he is to be credited for his success more than just the system and more than just Drew Brees. He's an exceptionally talented tight end. We saw him trail off last year when he did not, it looked like his gas tank ran out. He is one of the guys I alluded to earlier that I think, if you're in a PPR league and he's back in the 6th round, then I can start considering a super high. If Jimmy Graham finished the year as the number 1 tight end, I wouldn't be shocked. He has that type of potential.
Absolutely.
And very few other, Greg Olsen, I don't think will do that.
7 and 8 on our rankings. 7 and 8 are Zach Ertz and Kyle Rudolph. We talked a lot about Zach Ertz earlier this week. I really like the fact that with Jordan Matthews out, Ertz, I think the volume will be there. He has been a dominant force in fantasy football at the back half of the last 2 years. Ended last year with performances of number 4, number 2, 10. Then he was 34th against the Giants, but then came back in the last week, the often forgotten week of fantasy football, and was the number 1 tight end that week. And over the course of the last, 9 weeks, he had 7 top 12 performances. So we can't forget Zach Ertz and what he did over the last half of the year. Last 5 games, 40 receptions for 443 yards and 3 touchdowns. The tight end won.
Ertz is a very difficult man to get a grasp on. What is he going to do? Because this is now 2 years in a row where he has given you nothing.
But you had a reason last year in the beginning, in the first half. So let's rewrite the narrative. Here, I'm going to write it for you. You tell me if you buy in.
Okay.
He ended 2015 with on fire,
yes.
right?
I love Michael Keaton.
Sam Bradford left.
Was that the problem? Because that he was physically doused in flames
that's not the
and
problem.
very injured.
I'm not going that direction. That would be tough. At the beginning of last year, everybody's optimistic about him with Sam Bradford. The rookie takes over just before the season, and you have a slow acclimation period through the first 7 weeks with Carson Wentz. Then he's back to normal over the back half. So you could argue that little outlier 6-game stretch, mind you, week 1 he was number 10, and then he missed a couple weeks. So he really only had 4 weeks of mediocrity with Carson Wentz before being on fire for the rest of the year.
I'm just saying that in 2015, his first 11 games, he had 403 yards in those 11 games. And then the final 4 games, he had 450 total yards in 4 games. Then last year, the exact same thing happened where he in the first 9 games, 373 yards. And over the last 5
missed games, though. He missed
these
games
are games played. He played 14 games. In his first 9 games that he played, he had 373 yards. And then the last 5, 443. I'm just saying, like, a jump of that proportion that's outlier to me. So that's where I like him.
No, I
can't
disagree.
buy in.
I disagree completely because I think you had a brand new quarterback and you basically had 4 weweeks of mediocrity spanning a 2-season period of time.
Yeah,
the back half of 2015 all the way through to this year. I buy into Ertz. He's 7 on my rank. So
I totally get the argument. I mean, he should be a polarizing player. When you look at what he's done, you can write the narrative either way. I tend to lean towards Andy's side, especially since the departure of Jordan Matthews. With Jordan Matthews out of the way,
yes, that helps.
And what I've seen, the rapport between Wentz and Ertz, I am now a believer. I have been a strong supporter of Kyle Rudolph. And in this aforementioned sleeper bot league, I chose to take Zach Ertz over Rudolph. I'm a believer. I am a believer in Zach Ertz.
What about Rudolph? Rudolph seems very boring to me.
Rudolph,
but he was the number 2 tight end.
Yeah,
I'm going to make that point.
So that's not boring.
Yeah, 83 for 840. So you're talking about 10. I mean, that's half the yard per reception of Rob Gronkowski.
Let me tell you why Rudolph is a great fantasy football pick this year. Better than most of the guys we've talked about. Okay, his average draft position is going to be lower than almost everybody we've been talking about. Nobody loves Kyle Rudolph because, like you said, he's boring. You don't want him. Last year was an outlier. The thought is, we've already seen him for a long time. Kyle Rudolph is Greg Olsen in the sense that he was a highly drafted, talented player in college, very, a great physical specimen, but in the beginning part of his career, he was not utilized, just like Greg Olsen was not utilized when he was in Chicago. Then all of a sudden, he gets more involved in the team. You've got a quarterback that comes and throws the ball a lot. I mean, do you remember your love early on in Kyle Rudolph's career for him because of his talent? Do you remember that?
I do remember that, but I think the only comparison with Greg Olsen that you can count on is underutilization to utilization.
That's all I'm counting on.
They're not similar players. This is, you know what the physical comparison for Kyle Rudolph is? It's Heath Miller. That's why he's boring. He's a guy that averages low yards per carry. He's not a streaker down the middle of the field. You're not talking about the upper echelon guys here.
Well,
you're talking about Stefan Diggs is hurt again. Who am I thinking of? Charles Johnson is nothing. last year. And, okay, we've got one guy left to throw the ball to, and Sam Bradford has a 79% completion percentage, so we're going to throw it to Kyle Rudolph. So if you buy into Thielen and you buy into Floyd and Diggs and inclusion of these healthier aspects, Dalvin Cook in the passing game, I just don't want Kyle Rudolph. If you told me he was 13th round, sure, he's my tight end. But he's a 9th round, 8th round pick. In a PPR league, he's an 8th round pick. He's too boring for me.
He has the potential and the talent physically to catch touchdowns. He's done it before. It used to be called
the red zone reindeer.
The red zone reindeer.
Sure.
Now last year you
he's
saw
a
the
red zone
volume
threat.
and the efficiency. I think he's got the whole package to me to where late in drafts, I mean 9th round, you can get a guy who last year finishes the number 2 tight end and was tied for Greg Olsen with his consistency at that.
Do you
like
see yourself drafting him in the 9th round?
Yes, I really do.
That's a good point.
Yeah, Kyle Rudolph is one of my main tight end targets in drafts this year.
We've got some tight end division on the show. Might need to get a little Judge Giamatti action going on later on. All right, 9 and 10. Eric Ebron, Hunter Henry. Eric Ebron and Hunter Henry. Question marks aplenty. I think people surprised to see Ebron up there. He'll probably drop in my rankings if he cannot get himself healthy this preseason. Jason is sighing with frustration because we don't get to see what this guy is. He had weeks last year where, number 4 tight end against Dallas, number 2 against Jacksonville, but there's been no consistency there and certainly no touchdowns.
Yeah, when it comes to the touchdowns last year.
Well, there was one.
he had.
That's a plural. Touchdowns is plural, and so I stand.
There was a touchdown.
I stand correct.
So, well, here's the deal. In his sophomore year, he had 5 touchdowns as a second-year tight end. I don't think that Eric Ebron can't score touchdowns the way that some of these other guys have
it's
showed.
Against the law.
That's just not what they do. That's not their forte. I think Eric Ebron could. Last year, they went to Anquan Bolden when you were down near the goal line. Anquan Bolden is gone. These are the reasons why Eric Ebron, who is still super young, this is a 24-year-old at the tight end position, which has the longest learning curve for getting involved. Every stat other than his touchdowns,
busted.
Every stat other than his touchdowns have gone up every year that he's been there, and his involvement, his opportunity, everything. To me, I would have him as my guy this year if it wasn't for the fact that I'm starting to not believe he can stay healthy and get on the field. Right now,
I'll take Ebron in the 12th.
Practice with an undisclosed injury. Yeah, Ebron in the 12th
over
is still
Rudolph
a great
in the 9th.
value.
I will do that.
Yeah, I can see the argument for that. I just with Ebron, you have to wonder whether or not you're going to get 13 games out of him.
Let's shed some light on number 10, Hunter Henry. People don't know what to do with Hunter Henry. I think they love being excited about Hunter Henry because he's a very talented player, but let's shed some light on how people should think about him because he's still going in the 8th round right now. And so you're talking about taking him ahead of a guy like Kyle Rudolph, according to draft position. Shed some light on how people should think about Hunter Henry this year.
What's nice about Hunter Henry is that the ADP has actually gone back to where it should be. Early in the offseason.
Yeah, he was like the 5th tight end.
Yeah, everyone had the fever. They had Hunter Henry fever. He was being traded for ridiculous things in dynasty leagues. In an ADP was like a 6th round pick. It was absolutely outrageous, especially when you factor in that Antonio Gates is coming back. And preseason game 1, lo and behold, who's catching touchdowns? It's Antonio Gates.
It's what he does.
Yeah, but I believe in Hunter Henry's talent. He was 8 touchdowns as a rookie. That's the second most by a rookie tight end since the year 2000. Gronk had 10 his rookie year, but Gronk is Hall of Fame level tight end. You can't compare people to Gronk. But I think Hunter Henry, it will emerge, and there was talk out of San Diego. The coaching staff and people whispered from the bushes. They admitted they were force-feeding Antonio Gates the ball towards the end, that they wanted him to get that touchdown record, to sit alone at the top as the tight end with the most touchdowns in NFL history, and that Hunter Henry could have had like 4 more. And that would have been just absolutely outrageous. So I am buying in to Hunter Henry taking a step forward. The Mike Williams injury certainly keeps his value more stable, that they don't have another elite pass catcher to siphon off more targets. So I am more than willing to take Hunter Henry as my tight end in the ninth round. I think that's good value.
Would you be happy in a redraft league? You leave the draft. You spent a 9th round pick on Hunter Henry, and he is your only tight end on your roster. Do you feel confident with that?
Yes, I would feel comfortable with that. And I love Gates too. If you want to completely punt the tight end and only go with Gates, I just think that Henry's ceiling is higher. Phillip Rivers is known for throwing touchdowns to the tight end. And we saw it again last year. We saw it the year before.
He will.
That's a connection that Phillip Rivers looks to. He looks for that huge dude. Who wouldn't want to throw to the big guy in the end zone? That's what Phillip Rivers does.
He will throw touchdowns to the tight end for sure. The question and the worry is Antonio Gates. How many will he siphon off? And also, to be honest, coming out last year, Hunter Henry was great. So was Austin Hooper. Those two guys were pretty much about the same. I mean, as far as draft capital and pedigree coming into the league. And Hunter Henry only caught 36 receptions last year. It just so happened that
it's a little – he caught a reception again.
That's good. He only
We're
had
on fire today.
36 receptions.
Passes. Yeah, there you go.
So the thing is
since I can correct
he was so touchdown dependent that I just worry. I agree his upside is there. It's tremendous, but I think he's being overdrafted.
If you get to a certain point, though, in your tight ends and who you're picking, you're looking for a guy to score touchdowns.
If he was 11th, 12th round, then I would take the shot at him.
Mike, do you want Hunter Henry or Kyle Rudolph in the 9th round?
I want Kyle Rudolph. If his ADP is exactly the same, I'll take Kyle Rudolph.
Okay, Martellus, Bennett, and Jack Doyle round out our top 12.
I easily take Hunter Henry over Martellus Bennett.
There you go. We all have Martellus Bennett 10, 12, and 13. I think we've talked quite a bit about the fact that Aaron Rodgers hasn't produced a top tight end very often. Now, it has happened, and I think Martellus Bennett is super talented, but he's not going to be as reliable as you'd hope from the tight end position. You're going to have weeks where, I don't know, Martellus Bennett might have a 3-touchdown week this year.
Yeah, certainly.
But just like last year in New England, there were weeks that you could count on him, and then there were weeks where he disappeared. He had weeks last year in the 40s, many of them in the 30s. So he had weeks at number 3 and number 1 against Cleveland and Baltimore. So I don't think that changes very much in Green Bay, where Aaron Rodgers spreads the ball around and you're not going to be locked in on Martellus Bennett at the tight end position.
Yeah, on a per-game basis, back in the day when he had Jermichael Finley usually was finishing around the 6th tight end, which is very good. So the question is, was it that he doesn't throw to the tight end that much, Aaron Rodgers, or was it he didn't have talented tight ends after Jermichael Finley left? And we're going to find that out this year. But we do know that Martellus Bennett will catch enough touchdowns to be relevant, but I don't know if he'll have enough receptions to be banked on as a starter on a weekly basis. My worry with Martellus Bennett is not so much what does he do, but what does he do to the Devontae Adams and possibly Jordy Nelson's if he ends up with 8 or 9 or 10 touchdowns on the year.
Yeah.
Well, look, he's a 7th-round pick right now in fantasy drafts. That's the problem.
That's ridiculous. I mean,
I'd rather just punt the position.
Look back to Richard Rodgers, right? The couple years ago when he was the main guy, and now Martellus Bennett is a better tight end than Richard Rodgers.
Times a million.
But my point is, Richard Rodgers was a tight end 1. But he just ended up there.
A tight end 1 that you could never play.
Start. And it's Green Bay last year, they threw under 17% of Aaron Rodgers' targets were to the tight end. That's 23rd in the NFL. Aaron Rodgers just does not.
To be fair, Jared Cook was, as he does, missing quite often.
All right, Jack Doyle at number 12, tight end for the Indianapolis Colts. I got him at 11. I think he has a chance to be very involved in the offense. You have some injury right now to Eric Swoop, who will be the second tight end there. Indianapolis had the 6th highest percentage of targets to the tight end position last year, and he was about 60 receptions for under 600 yards in 5. So nothing spectacular last season. He was outside that top 12, just barely. He was 13. I think 12 is the right spot for Jack Doyle with some week-to-week upside. He's had some good games when he was the guy without Allen last year, so I don't know if we need to say anything else about there. I want to talk sleepers.
So for Jack Doyle, Indianapolis, 38% of their touchdowns went to the tight end position. That's 3rd highest. I mean, it's well documented that Andrew Luck feeds his tight ends. He always has two, whether it's Fleener and Dwayne Allen, and now it's going to be Doyle and Swoop or Swope, however you say it. So that's why that's the only thing holding Doyle back is that they split between two tight ends. Usually one will emerge as the predominant one, and I believe that's Jack Doyle. So I think he is a fine low-end tight end one.
All right, I'm going to read back through these. Be thinking of a sleeper tight end you want to share with the Foot Clan. One, we have Rob Gronkowski, then Jordan Reed, Travis Kelce, Greg Olsen, Tyler Eifert, Jimmy Graham, Zach Ertz, Kyle Rudolph, Eric Ebron, Hunter Henry, Martellus Bennett, and Jack Doyle. A sleeper tight end, pick one out that maybe you think you're not drafting them maybe, but you are looking at them in the first couple weeks of the season. If you're going to punt the position, maybe this guy's viable. Dennis Pitta last year would have been an example of this where you could kind of pretty much just sign him off the waivers whenever you wanted and get a good week out of him. Jason, who's yours?
I think if we're going that deep, a guy that you're not going to draft but you're going to pay attention to, Vance Mcdonald is a tight end that I was really excited for last year. And on a per-game basis, he was good, but he has been completely discounted in the fantasy circles
name is in the mud.
Because it looked like he wasn't even going to be on the team. They didn't want him. They didn't like him. He is, I believe strongly that he is their second best pass catcher on the roster. And they need someone to catch these passes. I think Vance McDonald will be more involved than we assume. If you look at the latest report from Roto World on Vance McDonald, it's a glowing report. The team is very pleased with him. So the news is changing on him the way it was on Carlos Hyde. We said several weeks ago when the question was, will these guys be there?
They know how to motivate their players in San Francisco. You just tell them that they're,
you suck.
Spread a rumor that they're going to be gone.
Does that work? So then, hey, go get John Brown because
I thought you were going to tell Mike he sucks.
We all know that's not true.
Austin Farion Jenkins is my sleeper pick.
Love it.
Suspended for the first 2 weeks. Guy has lost 20 to 25 pounds, always been an athletic freak. He had a problem with alcohol abuse and basically has cut that out of his life. And all the reports throughout camp, I think he's the best pass catcher on the Jets, and I think going into week 3, 4, 5.
So he is suspended for a few games.
That's what I said. He's suspended for the first 2 games.
I just want to emphasize this for people who want to
don't draft him.
No, none of these guys are drafting in the sleeper category here. So Austin Farion Jenkins, I think it'll be a very interesting play into the season.
The name I'm going to throw out, Jason briefly mentioned him, and that's Austin Hooper, second-year tight end for the Atlanta Falcons, who was worked in very slowly over the season. The first half, he was over the first half, he's averaging like a 20% snap share for the team, and then the second half of the year, it jumps up into the 70s. You saw what he can do in the Super Bowl when Matt Ryan went to him back-to-back plays in the end zone and ended up coming up with an excellent touchdown reception. And we know that Matt Ryan has history of using a tight end. Now that was maybe the best tight end in the history of football in Tony Gonzalez. But Austin Hooper has talent, has draft pedigree. There's juice there, he is a completely forgotten player right now.
I love that pick. That is, I mean, if you compare Hunter Henry and Austin Hooper right now and where they're going and what their seasons could turn out to be, it doesn't make sense.
Honorable mention to Charles Clay in Buffalo
and Kobe Fleener.
Like I said, Charles Clay.
You have to speak very quietly.
Yeah, you
when
can't
talk
say
Kobe
that one
Fleener.
very loud. But I would just say, top 12 tight end last year and possibly really good this year.
All right, Jason's favorite player is Kobe Fleener. And that is it for today's show. Great show tomorrow. Do not miss tomorrow's show. I'm telling you, it will be invaluable to your season. We're going top 10 tips and tricks to win your fantasy football league. We're going to dig deep on some stuff that you need to be paying attention to that no one else is going to tell you to do. If you're listening, keep it right here on the Fantasy Footballers Podcast. I'm telling you, you do not want to miss that episode. It's one of my favorites every single year. Brooks, do you like that episode? Are you going to be tuning in tomorrow for once?
I think I'll catch it. Yeah.
You're finally going to – okay. Judge Giamatti will be there.
I'll try.
And check out playdraft.com/ballers if you want to grab the draft app, take part in some best ball leagues and some regular season fun. Look, draft is great because it is a draft. You're not talking about spending salary on players. You get to draft players each and every week.
You know what to do
for DFS. So playdraft.com /ballers, and we are excited to be with you tomorrow. So thank you for your subscribes, your listens, your reviews. We appreciate them. You guys are awesome, and we will talk to you very soon.
Absolutely. See you later, Footland. Goodbye.
Thank you for listening to another episode of the Fantasy Footballers Podcast. Join our fantasy football community on jointhefoot.com and follow us on Twitter @TheFFBallers.